Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Tower Science Series. And if you've been following along, this is the last video in the series. But here's a little twist. For those that are watching the recordings, this will actually be the first video in the series. And the reason why is because this is really a recap of the Cosmic Tower Science Series covering some of the main principles and then explaining how they apply to the cosmic tower. So if you're new to this, welcome. And if you've been following along, this will be a good recap and understanding how it applies. So let's get into it because we have a lot to cover. Here we go. So let's start off with modern and mainstream science. So modern and mainstream science is reductionist in nature. It only focuses on breaking physical reality down to smaller and smaller pieces in the hopes to then unlocking the secrets of the whole of our reality. And life force is mainly ignored in mainstream science. Only the gross electromagnetic energies, which are really a small percentage of the total spectrum of creation, are taken into account. The etheric body, the energetic body, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual aspects are completely ignored in science, and that brings us to, for me, the biggest gaping hole, which is consciousness, is completely excluded from science and excluding, even though they've seen the effects of consciousness on some of their experiments, it's still excluded. And as I talked about in the consciousness video, excluding consciousness from explaining how our reality works is like explaining what a pool is, but excluding the water. So we need a new form of science. Now, if we look at the ancient healing sciences were holistic in nature, and they considered all the qualities of nature, of reality, which affected living beings. And it also recognizes that ultimately everything in existence is made up of one thing only, right? And the one ether, the one universal mind, whatever you want to call it. So all of those ancient healing sciences were really based on life force energy, where they call it chi, ki, prana, or ether, doesn't matter, but it's really focused on the life force that is really at the center of all of creation. So the ancient healing sciences also included all the other aspects of the human being that science ignored. It doesn't just look at the physical, but also at the energetic body, the emotional, the mental, and taking into account the spiritual plane. And then most importantly, consciousness is considered an integral part, a foundation of creation versus it just being excluded. So we need a new science, and this new science needs to recognize everything is made up of one and also includes consciousness and the subtle realms of creation. So for this series, I mainly picked the new physics of quality, which was developed by Dr. Ibrahim Karim, and you can learn more by going to biogeometry.com. So this new physics of quality, it seems very similar to the laws of quantum physics, but quantum physics applies only to the subatomic level, and the physics of quality applies to all the levels of creations, all the way from the micro to the macro. And it's universally applicable as such, because it looks at all the energetic reactions and not just on the physical plane, but also on the spiritual, mental, emotional, and the etheric plane. It also recognizes that all living organisms are conscious at their own level, all the way from the micro to the macro. So, and also the fact that all physical manifestations, all living organisms, and um, other forms of physical manifestations interact with their environment, and also the other way around are affected by their environment. So when we look at health, we really have to look at a holistic view of health, which is energy balance on all levels. So not just the physical, but also the etheric, spiritual, mental, emotional levels, and not only within, but also external to our own living being, our own living organism. So the individual affects the collective, and the collective affects the individual. That's a much more holistic way of looking at our creation. One important aspect that is talked about in the new physics of quality is that two or more energy systems, when they go into what we call resonance, there's an exchange of energy and information. And it's kind of like a tuning fork. You strike one tuning fork that's calibrated to that same vibration will also start resonating. So there's an exchange of energy and information. And what we also notice is that after two systems are connected through resonance, they don't return to their original state. So they keep part of the information that was exchanged. So this means that there's a sort of memory effect that after resonance, both energy systems are changed. So the physics of quality really breaks this subtle realm up in what they call a 12 band vibrational spectrum. And this contains all the energy qualities which um, basically come from the one, from that primal unity, and then manifest everything in the different realms of existence, including the physical realm. So one of the things we talked about is what is called longitudinal compression waves. And these are waves that are faster than light. And an example of some of types of waves like that are scalar waves or torsion waves, for example. But what's also important is that they carry the quality of its source that it's coming from throughout the entire environment in our space-time, but also through all the other levels of creation. So also affect the vitality layer, the mental and the emotional, for example. So then there is within these different within those 12 bands that the physics of quality breaks up the subtle energy spectrum in. There's horizontal and vertical waves, as they call them. And typically, horizontal waves tend to be beneficial to human beings, to living organisms, and vertical waves are detrimental. You can think of them as horizontal waves really keeping things in the earth plane, and vertical waves taking things out of the earth plane. Then there's also one particular band that is really important, which is called the negative green. And the negative green band is found throughout all natural systems. It's like a carrier wave, the vital carrier wave, which moves vibrational information from one location to another. And this carrier wave, most vibrations are not strong enough to move over long distances or through physical or energetic barriers, but this negative carrier wave can carry other vibrations for great distances and through obstacles, similar to the use of electromagnetic waves to broadcast information or in radio, television, or cellular um, systems. Now, this negative green is basically this omnipresent, invisible, spiritual vibration, right? That moves the energy. So spiritual practices create um, this negative green vibration, but horizontally to where it's actually beneficial to life. Things like man-made EMF also have a strong negative green energy quality, but in the vertical, but as a vertical wave, meaning that they're detrimental to our environment and all of life. So one of the things that we learned from the new physics of quality is that you can't really block, absorb, or deflect EMF. Ultimately, it can only be harmonized because you have the electromagnetic wave, but then there's also longitudinal compression waves that are created by the movement of the electromagnetic waves. And these carry the distortions from the electromagnetic man-made technologies, and they carry them into the vitality, into our energy layer, the mental and the physical bands of creation. So the new physics of quality teaches us that we cannot really separate ourselves from that anymore in our current world, and harmonization is really the only option. Now, this is goes to the one harmonizing quality of the center, which is which is actually the energy quality that maintains all the energetic structures of all living systems, and it's found in the center of a shape. And by definition, the center is a point with no time and space. Because if I take a circle and I put a dot in it, well, that dot I can also consider a circle with its center, and it continues. So this energy of the center is basically it connects through all levels of creation. And by applying this one harmonizing energy quality, we can actually harmonize things that are detrimental to life versus trying to apply another corrective measure that's more quantitative in nature. Just by applying this one harmonizing quality, the detrimental effects that are in the environment can actually be changed to beneficial effects. So these vibrational bands, this 12 band spectrum that we talk about, they're really in the invisible spectrum that most of us cannot perceive. But it still affects all living beings strongly, but it can only be detected by methodologies like physical radiesthesia, because our electromagnetic meters are simply not sensitive enough to measure these particular waves. And that's why sciences like the new physics of quality uses physical radiesthesia to actually be able to measure these energy qualities. So if we look at the physics of quality, well, mainstream science only focuses on the physical layer and then the subphysical, the electromagnetic spectrum, which are all in the slower than light realm. And then the physics of quality actually adds the entire subtle energy realm, where we have these multidimensional compression waves that communicate through all layers of creation. And this really creates sort of this multi-dimensional wave pattern, which is like the storehouse of information from which all of creation emerges and then returns to. So if we look at life force, one mistake is that people purely look at it as electromagnetism, right? That's a big mistake, even though that's a component of life force. Life force doesn't come from the subatomic and then and moves up. No, the life force comes from the one and then travels all the way from the much faster, the instantaneous roams to faster than the speed of light roams, through the mental, emotional, the spiritual planes, the etheric plane, and then comes into the physical plane, animating our physical reality, and then decaying into the electromagnetic spectrum that mainstream science is mainly focused on. So the new physics of quality takes all of the layers of creation into account, and um, all layers affect each other. So the subtle energy realm affects the physical, and the sub-physical realm, sub-physical affects the physical. They're all connected with each other through these longitudinal compressor waves, the faster than light waves. So this gives us a really complete model to look at creation, but also to measure it and to make changes. So before we get into the cosmic tower, I quickly want to talk about water. And as most of you know, water is key to life. In a way, it's the bridge between this metaphysical realm beyond our space and time and our physical realm of space and time. It's what allows the spirit, the life force, to animate physical reality. So, as we know from the work of Gerald Pollack of University of Washington in his book, The Fourth Phase of Water, he actually talks about how beyond solid, liquid, and vapor, water has a fourth phase. And you can look at this as living water, and he calls it easy water or fourth phase water. And this water has very different properties from for example, like tap water. I mean, if we look at this water, it has a hexagonal structure. And then at each corner of this water molecule of this hexagonal structure, negative charge electrons are generated. So it shows us that we have life force in this water. So even for the human body, it's mainly made up of this fourth phase of water, which actually, in a way, functions as our bio battery, storing our life force. So when this structure is disturbed, as we will see in the next slide, we lose um, life force. Most of you are probably familiar with the work of Masaru Emoto, so I'll go through it pretty quickly. But he basically showed that the water crystal, when he took it and he applied a magnification of 20,000 times on the water, so you could actually see the water crystal. What he noticed was that the water crystal and how it is shaped is influenced by the environment and the quality of the energy of the environment, but also by consciousness, by human intention. So, for example, water impregnated with a beneficial energy quality formed well-balanced and beautiful hexagonal water structures. Now, bad energy qualities produce badly formed crystals. So he also noticed that prayer or other spiritual activities, even simple positive thoughts or classical music, produced lovely, beautiful, well-balanced hexagonal water crystals, while normal tap water and bad energies produced undefined shapes. So we cannot just look at water as just being H2O and just a chemical process, but we also have to look at water as a carrier, not just of life force, but also information. Another researcher, Dr. Wolfgang Ludwig, said the frequency information of toxic substances stay in the water, even when you filter the water, and it's detrimental to our body. So no matter how well you chemically treat contaminated water, the signals, the energetic imprint that remains in the water can be disastrous to our health. It's also this memory effect that explains things like homeopathy. So it's really important that we look at the energetic aspect of water and not just the chemical. So here are some examples. Like on the left, you see a sample taken from saliva. How you clearly see that there's life force there. There's beautifully formed structures. And then after that saliva is exposed to mobile phone radiation, you see the distorted structures in the water, indicating that, the life force has been lost and that the information that's carried in the water is detrimental to our own living water and detrimental to life. And then on the right, you see some of Dr. Emoto's work, which shows how particular intentions create certain shapes within the molecular structure of water. So water structure is affected not only by the environment, but also by our consciousness. And that's something really important also, especially when we talk about the cosmic tower. So the other thing we see here is that the physical structure and the energy of the water can be changed by consciousness. So energies of the spiritual, mental, emotional, energetic, so from the subtle planes that we talked about, can directly change the physical manifestations that we're mostly aware of. That's a really, really important point. So let's go into the cosmic tower, and here you see picture of an amazing man, Harald Thiers, who is responsible for actually bringing this beautiful project into the world. And he was like incredible. What I appreciated most about him, he had a lot of like technical and science knowledge, but I really appreciated like the quality of his heart and how that energy was always present in everything he did. So thank you, Harold. Now, when we go look at the cosmic tower, what's inside the cosmic tower? So a cosmic tower contains two water vessels, one at the bottom and one at the top. And in these water vessels, there's not regular water, but it contains living water from multiple healing springs. And Harold used to refer to this as rainbow water because he said it contained the full spectrum of the light of the light frequencies within this water without there being any overlap. That's why he called it rainbow water. And then he also talked about how the overtone octaves are in this water. And when he talks about overtone octaves, you can think of this going more into the subtle realms on these other planes of creation, physical, beyond the physical, right? The spiritual, mental, emotional, and the vitality planes. So then there's also a crystal in the center between the two water vessels, and then this water is activated and a toroidal field is created. So the water in the bottom vessel is spinning counterclockwise and the one in the top clockwise. And this creates the toroidal field. And this is a very beneficial toroidal field. Um, in the center, it's really connected all the way up through the high spiritual realms. And this also gives the cosmic tower this strong presence of this centering quality, of this one harmonizing energy. And you can learn more in the toroidal field video, but really that center of the torus, we're in the cosmic tower where the crystal is. It's like the point of ultimate balance and stillness. It's this perfect centerness, and it's this access point to the one harmonizing quality, but also to all the other realms of creation. So what you really get now is a portable power spot, right? This one harmonizing quality can be found in the sacred power spots all over the world. So it has a positive effect on the entire environment. Cosmic Tower is very similar, other than it's portable. So now you can have a portable sacred energy spot in your home. And some of the benefits of that are, you have direct access to this one centering quality and you're surrounded by that. But then also the cosmic tower will emit through these longitudinal compression waves, these faster than light waves that we talked about. It will emit beneficial waves not only for great distances in our space-time reality, but also into all the subtle levels of creation. So this really creates a harmonizing quality in your home and in your environment on all the levels, spiritual, mental, emotional, vitality, and the physical. Now, the other thing with a cosmic tower at is that it has this strong horizontal green carrier wave that we talked about, the negative green horizontal one, which then carries this harmonizing quality all the way through the environment. And then the other thing this horizontal carrier wave does, it neutralizes, it harmonizes all the detrimental vertical negative green carrier waves that are in our environment because of man-made EMF, et cetera. And all of this has been verified by physical radiesthesia measurements, which can measure these different qualities that we've talked about. So because of this, the cosmic tower gets all these extraordinary benefits. It's much more than just an EMF solution. So you will get a harmonized energy throughout your entire home and beyond because it acts like a sacred power spot. There's a significant increase of negatively charged ions in the water, the food, and the air. And, that's because of the connection to the life force. And you saw how water could be changed by our consciousness or the environment. So the highly beneficial qualities of the water within the cosmic tower are also, um, you know, they also go through the environment, and this has as an effect that there's more life force within your home, within the range of the tower, but also that water, food, and air, anything that is in the field will just have much more life force in it. So because of that, a lot of people have fewer symptoms of fatigue, experience shorter regeneration times, improved concentration. Other benefits are like the alignment of the chakras, right? The one harmonizing quality brings everything back into balance, including our chakras. Because the cosmic tower has these longitudinal compression waves that are created to all of the subtle realms, it doesn't just support the physical, but also our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, which helps us to develop and raising our own vibration. More restful sleep. It's something we hear a lot for people that have a cosmic tower, and then the removal of energetic blockages in our subtle bodies, which also happens through the one harmonizing quality. And then there is a stronger protective layer that gets built around the entire body. Healthier plants and animals, healthier water, because as you see, it structures the water and basically puts this beautiful energetic imprint of the healing water that is within in the water within its field, so within your home. And then there's also the transmutation of any harmful substances that are within the range of the cosmic tower, whether they're physical in nature, like physical toxins, or whether they're sources of radiation that create them. It doesn't really matter because through applying the one energizing, the one harmonizing energy quality, what happens is that the spin is reversed of the radiation that is given off by this toxin. So you can learn more in the video about toroidal fields where I talked about torsion fields. So Russian scientists figure out that all toxins, everything detrimental to life, creates this counterclockwise spin in the human energy field, and that everything that's beneficial to life creates this clockwise rotations on the subatomic level in the universal energy field. So by applying the harmonizing quality, things that have a counterclockwise or detrimental effect, taking life force away, can be flipped into beneficial, right? This is how the cosmic tower can do things like harmonize toxins and etc. So what makes the cosmic tower unique is that the benefits are not just for the individual, right? It's also for the collective and the environment. And the bigger the tower, the more positive and the further the effect on the environment and all living beings within the range of that tower. It's a natural solution, so it doesn't use electricity, but it uses natural materials and nature principles to create all these beneficial effects on all layers of creation. Cosmic Tower is active 24/7, 365 days a year, and it's easy to implement it and it doesn't require any maintenance. Some other solutions might require a lot more knowledge to implement, like biogeometry, for example, is great, but you need to be very knowledgeable or get somebody that's very knowledgeable to implement this. And then since all energy systems are dynamic, to adjust it over time as it's needed. This is not needed with the cosmic tower because it has that connection to the higher realms, to this one harmonizing energy quality, so continuously bringing more harmonizing energy into the environment. The cosmic towers are scalable, so we have them for travel, like the Mini, but we also have the very large towers like the 220s and 250s that create this beautiful network throughout our environment that not only harmonizes and helps nature and all living beings, but the large towers also support the smaller towers so they can function more easily and even be more focused on your spiritual development or whatever your intentions may be. As I said, the cosmic tower is more than just an EMF solution. So there's many benefits beyond harmonizing the detrimental effects of EMF, because it has these beneficial waves and this beneficial energy going through all layers of creation. The cosmic tower can help you improve your health on all levels of existence, not just physical, but also on the vitality, the emotional, mental, and the spiritual plane. So really, it's a spiritual support um, also for us, and then for all the people within its field, allowing human beings to connect even more with this one harmonizing quality within ourselves. So the Cosmic Tower helps with the spiritual development. So let's look at some radiesthetic measurements. And this is of a cosmic tower, 75 and 220. And this particular report was written by Peter Vester, who's a professional life energy consultant for radiesthesia. And he first got a 75. And what he did is he measured his home before and then after the arrival of the cosmic tower. And he does it, he uses two different scales. One of them is the Bovis scale, and the Bovis scale is really a measurement of how much life force there is in a human, in a food, or in a particular place. And typically, any value below 6,500 takes life force away from living organisms, while anything above 6,500 roughly gives more life force to all living organisms. So in order to stay healthy, we need an environment, but also food and water that's above this 6,500 on the Bovis scale. So the higher this Bovis value, the more life force is present. Then he also uses a different scale where he basically measures what they call the hypersound, which are distortions that are not in the audible spectrum, but are in these subtle realms. It's identical to measuring this longitudinal compression wave, scalar waves, orgone, whatever you want to call that. So the lower that value when you measure, that's like the less noise is in the subtle realm. So a lower value on that scale is more beneficial. So you can see for yourself in the table how when he first got his 75, the Bovis values went significantly up at different distances from the 75. And he was so impressed that he then went on to get a CT220 and he did the same thing. He measured before and then after bringing it in, and he could measure at great distances from the CT220 how the life force went up and the noise in the subtle planes, the hypersound, went down. So he continues then to, to share his findings after the 220 had been in place for a while. He went to many cell phone towers in his neighborhood and in his vicinity. And after the 220 was there, he realized there was no hypersonic noise left. Nothing could be measured, not even where there were clearly 5G's antennas that had been installed. He also looked at the wind turbines with a lot of detrimental effects, and even though the physical sound was still there, there was no more hypersonic noise in the subtle realms. So it was basically neutralized, even though you could still hear the physical vibrations, the sound from them. Then he also used it for remote influencing, where he was able to help people that were outside of the range of his large tower, but helping them through the network. He had created success with that, with using his own intent to get beneficial results for his clients. Then he also measured, I believe, three nuclear power plants. It grabbed his attention because in the past years there had been a lot of newspaper reports about significantly increased cases of cancer in the vicinity of these three nuclear plants. Even though that official studies shown that radioactivity could not be the cause because it's not measurable and it was within the safe limit values. Remember, our science only focus on a small percentage of our reality, and it does not take into account the subtle layers, which were highly toxic around these nuclear power plants. So when he first went there, he quickly got back into his car because the hypersound noise that he was measuring of the radioactivity in the subtle layers could be measured over a wide area and was really strong. And then it was actually even made worse because this was carried then far into the country through power lines, etc. So even though the reactors had been shut down, the vibrations were still there. So he worked with his cosmic tower consciously to harmonize everything in this area. And he was absolutely amazed how everything was resolved in only 3 days. He went back and did the measurements, and he could no longer detect these detrimental subtle energy qualities that were present. So this is just one example of radiesthesic measurements done on the cosmic tower by someone in Germany. A lot of these experiments have been repeated here by our own community, and they always came out, to the same result. Uh, One of members in our community, Theo, would measure homes, their life force before and then after the cosmic tower, and he said it was always the same result. Low life force, actually energy being taken away from the person before the cosmic tower, and then after the cosmic tower was installed and was active in that particular place, the life force just kept rising, and he would get higher and higher measurements. He would repeat these measurements, before, then 3 to 5 days after the towers arrived, and then 4 to 6 weeks after the towers had been there. And you always notice a significant increase in the life force, which is really good for any living organism within the range of that tower. Now, another thing that has been done in Holland, remember uh, Emoto's work of how the crystals change based on the environment and based on the human intention. This is a similar methodology, but it's not as big an amplification as Emoto does, who really goes on the excuse me, on the single water crystal. So this was a little bit less of a magnification to where they can see the vitality of water in the structures of that water. So as you can see here, these are a few examples. They took samples from three places in Holland, then did a picture before, then exposed that water um, to the cosmic tower and then made a new picture. And what they saw in all the cases was that before there wasn't a lot of vitality or life force in the water. After it was exposed to the cosmic tower for a few minutes, and then a new picture taken, you see these beautiful fern structures, well organized, indicating a lot of vitality in the water. And then the person who's been doing this for over 15 years said that it was amazing because even after the cosmic tower uh, was, worked with the water or influenced the water, they could actually see rainbow hues coming off of the water, which, yeah, was really amazing. And she had never seen that before. So here's one last, way of measuring the human energy field, which is the biowell, which was created by Professor Korotkov. Um, and he, with an international team, created this device to where they basically can measure the stress levels in a human being, but then also the energy levels. So what they noticed was they measured the person before and they had a certain stress level and energy level. After the person put a Cosmic Tower Mini on their, I believe, on their thymus gland, what they noticed was an increase in energy, in life force, and a decrease in stress levels. So that's another way of measuring the positive effects of the Cosmic Tower. So, this is just a brief summary of how the cosmic tower does what it does and the new science that we have to understand to be able to comprehend this. But what are some practical applications of this? Like, how can you apply this in your life? Well, one of the ways to do this is to connect more to the one harmonizing quality, center more. So you access that quality more deeply and more regularly. And this can be done through whatever works for you, through prayer, blessing, meditation, qigong. Really, do your own practice that works for you so you learn how to embody this quality and move through the world being a harmonizing factor on your environment and everyone or anything you come into contact with. The other thing to practically do is a lot of people say, like, well, I don't really feel my tower. Well, my question to them would be, well, can you feel the energy field of a tree? Because if you can't feel that the energy of a tree, you're definitely not going to be able to feel um, that of a cosmic tower. And that doesn't mean it always has to be that way. It simply means that you haven't really focused on perceiving beyond the physical realm, right? A lot of us were born being aware and being able to observe and to perceive in realms beyond the physical realm. But then through our programming, we're basically being taught to shut that out, to only pay attention to our physical reality. So one of the things you can do, and that's really important, is to develop your sensitivity beyond the beyond the physical spectrum. And you could do this through learning biogeometry. What I really like about it is that you learn to tune into, each of the different bands, each of the different qualities of creation. So you actually learn to discern what is what. But you could also learn other dowsing method or your own healing or spiritual practices, meditation. So the more you start putting your awareness in these realms beyond the physical, the stronger that resonance becomes. And not only the better you can actually receive information from that layer, but also the stronger your ability to affect those layers. And whether you like it or not, it's not because you can't perceive it that it doesn't affect you. So, building your sensitivity beyond the physical is one thing you can do. Another thing that's really important is when we look at cleansing or harmonization, most of us are just focused on the physical. But we have to extend this to the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the etheric bodies. So by cleaning up our mental and emotional layers or organisms, we become a lot healthier. And I mean, think about it. You could eat something that's not good for you, that's detrimental for you, and you poison yourself that one time. But you could have hundreds of thousands of detrimental thoughts or emotions throughout the day that are constantly poisoning your system, but starting from the more subtle layer. So, do your own process to help clean up those layers of your being. Another thing you can do is to create sacred energy spots in your home and beyond. The simple way to do this is to get a cosmic tower, but there are other ways like when you learn biogeometry, you can learn how to harmonize your homes or places that you care about. And we actually have a group within our community that's focused on the energetic quality of certain lakes. So they measure it using biogeometry, life force, even the scale of consciousness before. And then they work with the Cosmic Tower Network to raise the vibration, raise the consciousness, and to really improve the energy quality of those lakes and rivers. And then they measure them again, seeing the beautiful effects the Cosmic Tower has on those bodies of water, and then they keep track of them. But you can also do this for your own environment. But first, decide and connect more and more with that harmonizing quality within. And then as you move through the world, spread that quality throughout the world. Now, the last thing is really, really important, which is use your awareness wisely. So what you focus on, whether it's through your physical senses or through thoughts, you actually create a resonance with. So you exchange information with. And if these are detrimental things, detrimental thought patterns or emotional patterns, or even things in our physical reality, like 5G towers and whatever, you go into resonance with them. So not only are you taking more of that detrimental energy in, but you're also strengthening that part of our creation. As I say, energy flows where our focus goes. So the more you're focused on that, the more of these negative qualities you bring into your own life and into our reality as a whole. So focus more on the one harmonizing energy quality on things that are beneficial, and by shifting your focus from all the problems in the world to where the solutions are, so you empower them with your own consciousness. So thank you for watching this video, and I sure hope that this was useful for you. And if it is, please leave a comment or a like below the video, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.